Hi everyone, this is Naya from Mindful Movement, and today I'm sharing with you exercises from my Healthy Hips workshop. We will start with part one, lying in supine position, which just is a fancy way of saying you're lying on your back. And all you'll need is yourself, hopefully a clean place to lie down. And if you would like to have props, I'll be using an inflatable ball, a block, and an elastic band like a TheraBand. They aren't necessary, so feel free to also use your imagination. You don't need any props to follow along. This video is designed for you to follow along, so once you are ready to go, continue watching the video. See you on the mat. Okay, so now that you've made your place on your mat, you should know that we'll be in this supine position or lying on our backs for the duration of part one of Healthy Hips exercises. And this is meant for anyone who doesn't have any experience with Pilates or other movement modalities. So I'll be going through kind of like the very basics. So if you are a more advanced practitioner and you've worked with me in the past, you might find some of this to be a great review. And you might also watch the video and do a lot of this on your own or watch some of my more advanced videos. I hope that you enjoy. So, supine alignment. We're going to start from the feet and work our way up. Your feet will be sits bone distance apart. The sits bones are the bones that you sit upon, the base of the pelvis. I like to actually take a look and make sure that they're aligned properly and then try to keep them there as I lie down. Second toe is going to be in line with the knee and weights evenly distributed through your feet. And then as you lie down, pelvis is going to be in neutral position. You can check in with your pelvis by placing your hands on the ASIS. These are the bony landmarks at the front of the pelvis. So take the heel of your hand, place them on those bony landmarks. Fingertips are going to be on the pubic bone. And generally, your hands shall lie flat to be an anatomical neutral. If your fingertips are tilted up higher than the palm of your hand, you are in what I call a northern tilt. Basically, if you were to put a compass on your pelvic bowl, north is towards your head, south is towards your feet, your pelvis is tilted towards your head, north. And if your fingertips are lower than your palms, you are in a southern tilt. You might also find that there's an arch in your lower back. So your pubic bone is reaching down towards your heels and you are in a southern tilt in this position. So try to find neutral pelvis. Elongate the spine. The sacrum, the triangular bone at the base of the spine, should be relatively flat. Shoulders are wide and drop down the back of the rib cage, and the base of the rib cage is drawn towards the mat. So you're going to use your abs to keep that base of the rib cage rooted there. If it's not touching, that's okay. You'll just make it an intention to draw the rib cage towards the mat, even if it doesn't touch. Long through the back of the neck, back of the head is weighing heavily into the mat. From here, now that we've found our anatomical neutral, or what might be your individual neutral, which is fine, we're going to go into pelvic tilts. So we'll start with a north-south tilt. On your next exhale, you'll co-contract. So co-contraction means lifting the pelvic floor, drawing the lower abs to spine, and engaging the small multifidi muscles that run along the spine, stabilizing it. They're your small extensor muscles. So, in order to make that happen, imagine someone is about to punch you in the stomach. All of a sudden, you tighten up all of those muscles in order to protect your internal organs. Those same muscles are working for you when we co-contract. We just don't want to be so rigid. So think about gently engaging all of those muscles to create a cylinder of support around your midsection. All right, from here, inhale to lengthen through the spine, breathe the back of the rib cage down into the mat. On your exhale, co-contract, lifting pelvic floor, drawing lower abs to spine, multifidi muscles are engaged, and you're going to curl your pelvis north, imprinting the lumbar spine into the mat. And exhale, tilt south. Pubic bone draws towards the back of the heels. Inhale, I meant to say exhale, go north, and inhale, heading south. So you're getting a curl of the pelvis, imprinting the lower spine into the mat, and on the southern tilt, you're getting a stretch through the front body. Good. Exhaling as you go north, inhaling as you go south, And if my breath cueing does not resonate in your body, please feel free to follow your own breath pattern. You just want to make sure that the breath pattern is supporting your movement. I cue you to breathe, exhaling as you curl north, like I'm in right now, so that you can use that co-contraction to pull up. And then inhaling, lengthening. And in general, in Pilates practice, we exhale and co-contract in the most effortful part of any of our exercises. We inhale for expansion and lengthening. The next time that you come back to center, we're going to take our pelvis east to west. So if this is north towards the head, south towards our feet, east and west is basically right and left. So if you put your hands back on the front of your pelvis, think about having a teeter-totter across your pelvic bowl. And your right hand is one side of that teeter-totter. It's laying down into the mat. And as teeter-totters work, as the right side weighs down, the left side starts to rise up towards the ceiling. And then switch to the other side. Left side weighs down towards the mat, right side rises. As you continue to rotate from side to side, try to keep the rest of the body still so that knees are stable, upper body's relaxed, and it's just the pelvis tilting from side to side. And we'll do this a few more times, following the rhythm of your breath. So I tend to breathe a lot and move very slowly. That just helps me really think about engaging my muscles properly. You might find that you have a little different pacing, and that's absolutely fine. It's just important that what you're doing works for you. We'll go one more time to each side, tilting the pelvis from side to side, or rotating the pelvis from side to side. And then we'll come back to neutral, and the bony landmarks of the pelvis, the ASIS is what it's called in medical anatomical terms. Imagine that you have two headlights here, and they're shining straight up towards the sky. You want to keep your headlights shining straight up towards the ceiling when your goal is to keep your pelvis in neutral. So keep that in mind as we continue with our exercises. If you have an inflatable ball available, you'll grab your ball, place it between your knees. If you don't have a ball, you're going to imagine there's one in between your knees. The imagination is the powerful thing, so let it work for you. So from the top of the legs, you're going to squeeze into the ball. And what that feels like is inner thighs, outer hip muscles working together. And as you exhale and squeeze the muscles together, that will translate down the leg and gently squeeze the ball. On your inhale, release. Exhale to squeeze. Inhale, release. Exhale, squeeze. Inhale, release. You're welcome to stay here, especially if this feels challenging. If you feel like you're just moving from the knees, this is just moving from the knees, really focus on that engagement of around the hips and inner thighs to get the squeeze in the ball. So you're thinking of working from the top of the leg, and it should kind of feel like you're squeezing your butt. So you're working your glutes here to help make this all happen. If you would like more challenge, you'll squeeze just on the right side when you exhale, and then release on the inhale. And the next time will be on the left. Exhale to squeeze, inhale, release. Right side, squeeze and release. Left side, squeeze and release. Right side, squeeze and release. Left side, squeeze and release. One more time on each side. And know that I'm just moving my hands so you get a better visual for the movement. Now squeeze both legs together on the exhale. Inhale, release. Your arms can be by your sides. Good. Last time here. Exhale to squeeze. Inhale to release. And then keep the ball there, whether it's imaginary or real. We're going into bridging next. We'll start with neutral bridges, and the muscles that we're targeting are our hamstrings and our glutes, but really focusing on the glutes here. So these are also known as glute bridges. So we'll start by thinking about that co-contraction, engaging pelvic floor, drawing lower abs to spine, engaging those small extensor muscles at the back. And on your next exhale, co-contract, Squeeze gently into the ball from the top of the legs. Press down equally through the soles of the feet as you lift the pelvis so it rises up towards the sky. Stay soft in the chest. So imagine that you have a weight on your chest. Breastbone sinks down towards the mat as you open through the front of the hips. Squeeze the butt to see if you can get your bridge up higher from using your glutes versus pressing into your shoulders. Hold here for one more breath. Keep that squeeze in the ball. Keep toes spread wide on your mat. And then traction the spine, keeping the spine and pelvis in neutral as you gently come back down again. Inhale to lengthen the spine. Readjust however you need in order to keep length in the spine. On your next exhale, co-contract, squeeze into the ball, press into the soles of the feet as the pelvis rises towards the sky. Inhale here, and on your exhale, slowly sit back down, tractioning the spine as you sit like you're sitting into a chair. 2 more here. Inhale, lengthen through the spine, breathe the back of the rib cage into the mat. On your exhale, squeeze from the top of the legs, press into the soles of the feet, squeeze your butt, send the pelvis up towards the ceiling, opening through the front of the hips, lengthening through the top of the thighs. And then gently sit back down as though you're sitting into a chair. We've got 1 more here. Inhale, lengthening. On your exhale, co-contract, squeeze from the top of the legs, press equally through the soles of the feet as the pelvis rises, opening through the front of the hips. Squeeze a little bit more. See if you can squeeze gently into the ball. Holding for 1 more breath. And gently coming back down. Take the ball out from between your knees. We're going to windshield wiper the knees. This is lumbo-pelvic rotation. So you'll take your feet as wide as your mat, windshield wiper the legs from side to side. This is a nice way to release hips, lower back, before we do more bridges. We're going to go into articulating bridges next. They're also known as rolling bridges. We'll still be using our hamstrings and our glutes significantly. However, we're going to be focusing on moving through the spine a little bit more. So we have all these vertebrae in our spine, and we're trying to allow each joint, right? So each vertebra to articulate or move smoothly when we're doing rolling bridges. So this is part of why they're called articulating bridges. Now, right before I put the ball back between my knees, I'm checking in with my feet again. So toes are facing forward straight in front of me, feet are aligned in parallel position. I am making sure my knees are in line with my second toe, and then I'm going to roll back down. And you don't necessarily need to check it that often, but it's a good idea to do so, especially if you know that you have a tendency for your feet to kind of shift all over the place. I recognize that I literally just moved my feet as I lay down, which is pretty common. I'm getting back up, checking again. Oh, yep, they're still good. All right. Ball between the knees, articulating bridges. Here we go. Arms are by our sides. Unless you want more of a challenge, then you can do this with your arms reaching up towards the ceiling. I would recommend keeping your arms by your sides if this is new to you. On your next, and actually I'm going to put my arms out to the side so you can see my spine a little bit better. So on your next exhale, co-contract, gently squeeze into the ball, and then you're going to curl your pubic bone like you're doing a northern tilt. So pubic bone goes towards belly button, imprint lower spine into the mat. We're doing this slowly with control and precision here. So now that I've imprinted my lumbar spine, I'm starting to peel my sacrum off of the mat, and slowly, vertebra by vertebra, lifting or peeling 1 vertebra at a time off of the mat. As I do so, I'm squeezing my glutes to send the pelvis up a little bit higher, opening through the front of the hips a little bit more. Once I get to about the shoulders, I want to make sure I'm dropping through the breastbone. I'm squeezing my glutes to get my pelvis up as high as I can, trying to create a beautiful bridge here. And then I'll slowly roll back down 1 vertebra at a time. And as I do so, I'm thinking about curling the pelvis north as much as possible, and then gently bringing 1 vertebra down at a time, and then coming back down to my sacrum and coming back to my neutral position. Now for this bridge, I felt like my heels were a little far from my sits bones, so I'm going to draw them a little bit closer for the next one. You might need to readjust right now, however is most comfortable for you. We'll do 1 more articulating bridge. On your next exhale, co-contract and squeeze into the ball gently as you curl the pelvis north, imprinting the lumbar spine, and then peeling sacrum and 1 vertebra at a time off the mat. We're going to take a few breaths to get all the way up into our full bridge, opening through the front of the hips. And once we get all the way up into the bridge, think about energetically pulling the backs of the heels towards your sits bones, engaging the hamstrings a little bit more. One more breath here, and then slowly roll back down, one vertebra at a time. And when I say slowly, like I'm still working on it. So hopefully you're still working your way down out of your bridge as well, coming into your lumbar spine, and then very slowly bringing the sacrum back down to the mat and rolling back to neutral pelvis. Oh, and we're done with bridges. Remove the ball, take your feet as wide as your mat, windshield wiper your knees from side to side, lumbopelvic rotation. It's a nice way to kind of get a little break in between exercises. We're going to go into toe taps next. So for toe taps, long spine, you'll draw your right leg in a tabletop and then your left leg in a tabletop. If this does not feel good on your body, please feel free to keep one foot on the mat and you'll hinge from the top of the hip, tapping the toe down to the floor from here. If your body tolerates having both legs in tabletop position, then you're going to tap from here. Good. So knee is bent at 90 degrees, hinge happens at the hip, and it's really important to keep a long spine and neutral pelvis. So I'm going to demonstrate poor posture. If I'm doing this and I'm getting this huge arch of my lumbar spine, it's going to get into my back. So if you are finding that you have any strain or any discomfort in your lower back doing this, please bring your opposite foot down to the floor to help support you and engage your lower abs as much as you can in order to keep your pelvis stable. So our main goal for toe taps is lumbopelvic stability. You can also make your toe taps smaller. So right now I'm tapping the floor. If I feel my pelvis rocking while I do that, then I won't come all the way to the floor. I might just come down part way and then draw back up again. We'll do 2 more on this side and then we'll switch to the other side. Good, so as we switch to the other side, you might experience that it feels different from one side to the other. That's fairly normal. But make sure that you're trying to keep as much control as possible as you're doing it. Good, and again, the most important part here isn't actually the leg movement, it's keeping the pelvis and the lower spine stable. You're using your lower abs in order to do that. So co-contracting to really keep the pelvis in alignment, neutral alignment. 3 more here for 3, 2, last one, and then bring one foot to the floor and then the other. And of course, I enjoy lumbopelvic rotation as much as I can in between things. So you might enjoy that as well. All right, feet are going to go back together, and this time we're not sits bone distance apart. We actually have the feet touching. You can do this sits bone distance apart. I find it to feel more comfortable in my body with the inner borders of the feet actually touching. We're going into knee drops here. So I'm going to take my arms out to my sides, creating kind of a T shape. And then starting on the right side, I'm going to allow the knee to draw down towards the floor. Again, we're focusing on lumbopelvic stability. The leg movement is just like icing on the cake. So while I'm doing this, I'm focusing back on those headlights at the front of the pelvis. They need to shine straight up towards the sky. And as I do that, I'm using my lower abs to keep the pelvis stable as I externally rotate the leg and the hip joint. And then I draw the leg back to center. I'm going to stay on the right side for 5 more, and then draw back up to center. And 4, pelvis is stable, long spine. And 3, and 2. 1 more here, and then we'll switch to the other side. Co-contract before you begin, making sure that the pelvis is stable, spine is in neutral, and then left knee drops down towards the floor and back up again. You are coming to the outside of your foot as you do this. And again, your range of motion is limited by your ability to keep the pelvis stable. We've got 2 more after this one. And 2. And last one. Good, bring the knees back together here. Hopefully that feels good on your hips. I love those knee drops. We're going to go into leg circles next. And for leg circles, you might find having a strap is helpful. Whether it's a yoga strap or an elastic band, I really like having the elastic strap. So lying on your back for leg circles, place your right foot, or place the strap around your right foot. You're going to send the right foot up towards the ceiling and think about lengthening through the spine, keeping the pelvis in neutral as you reach through the heel. So you're getting a nice lengthening through the back of the leg. Allow the head of the femur or the big thigh bone to rest down heavily into the cup of the pelvis. And then from here, we'll make little tiny circles, massaging the head of that leg in the hip joint or in that cup of the pelvis. I'm going to add on a few different things as you continue to circle. The first thing is, as you start your circle, externally rotate from the top of the leg to sweep the leg away from midline. When you get to the bottom of your circle, internally rotate from the top of the leg and complete the circle. When you get up to the top of the circle again, externally rotate for the first half, internally rotate as you come up to the top of your circle. And then go ahead and switch directions of your circles, internally rotating first as you sweep the leg across midline, externally rotating as you draw the leg around. And you'll notice that my circles are quite small. That's intentional. I want to have control over them, and I want to use the smaller stabilizing muscles in order to create that rotation of the head of the leg in the hip joint. If you're able to keep your pelvis stable while you make larger circles or faster circles, then you're welcome to add on making them faster, larger, but that's not necessarily better. If you're losing your lumbopelvic stability, you've kind of lost the intention of the exercise. Another thing, as we switch to the other leg, so put your left foot in the strap. If you don't have a strap, again, you might not need one at all. It's just kind of a helpful tool. You can either have your opposite leg bent like I do, or have your leg extended long. If you have your leg extended long, reach through the heel. That way it helps keep the pelvis stable. I like feeling more supported by having my sole of the foot on the ground. If you have your knee bent like I do, make sure your knee stays in line with your second toe. Oftentimes, as we start circling the leg in the air, the stabilizing leg with the knee bent will start to bow away from midline to kind of create a counterbalance. And I'm grossly exaggerating this, but you'd be surprised some of the things I see. So, reach through the heel and externally rotate and internally rotate. Good. As you continue here, just check in with your alignment. As I just said, I see some really interesting alignment challenges, and we often are out of alignment and don't realize it. Sometimes it can feel really frustrating when we realize how we've been moving and we try to change those movement patterns. So, and I include myself in that, absolutely. It's an ongoing journey. So just be kind to yourself and notice the little things and see what you have control over and what you can continually work on, and recognize it's going to take some time, and that's okay. It's part of the whole experience. So I always tell people, if they notice that they're challenged in some way, whether it's keeping their pelvis stable or keeping their knee in alignment with their toe, you just start small. So you'll notice my circles are still quite small because I'm really focusing on the stability. Go ahead and switch directions, internally rotating from the top of the leg, sweeping the leg for the first part of the circle, and then externally rotating as you finish the last part of the circle. And we'll do a few more circles in this direction. Draw your attention, if you have your knee bent, to the sole of the foot on the floor, and just make sure your toes are spread wide, knees still in line with the second toe. Check in with your pelvis, making sure it's not rocking or moving as you move the leg. We'll do one more circle here, and when we finish this last circle, up at the top of the circle, go ahead and take your leg out of the strap. We are done with leg circles. All right, next is lying psoas stretch, and I like using a block for that. So I'm going to take my block. You might want to use a rolled towel, you might want to use a foam roller, lots of options. You also don't need to use any props, like I've said before. If you are going to use a block or a foam roller or towel, make sure it's placed underneath your sacrum, not underneath your lower back. So that's quite important. The purpose of having something underneath your pelvis or sacrum, which is in between your pelvis, um, is to keep your pelvis up high in order to keep it in a neutral position. So if you're not using a prop, make sure that you're really using your lower abs to keep your pelvis in neutral or slightly curled north. I'm going to take my right knee in towards my chest. I'm going to think about clasping my hands at the front of the shin. I'm going to continue to draw the knee towards my chest as I flex the opposite foot, heels touching the mat, or really actually rooted down to the mat, and I'm going to slide the heel away from me. And as I do so, I'm going to start to feel a stretch at the front of my left hip. I'll continue to draw the right knee in towards my chest, and I'm going to think about curling my pubic bone north or pubic bone towards belly button in order to create more of a stretch through the front of my left hip as I continue to stretch the left heel towards the wall in front of me. It's important that the heel is rooted down to the ground. You'll notice that my leg is not fully extended. I've got a little bend behind the knee. That is absolutely fine. What you don't want is to have your leg extended but just hanging out in the air. Make sure it's grounded to something, okay? So as you stay here, lots of people experience quite a bit of a stretch. Some people don't feel anything. If you aren't feeling much of anything, keep reaching through the heel and curling the pelvis north. If you still aren't feeling anything, you might be hiking your hip up. So see if you can lengthen through the side body, particularly on the right side. And if you still don't feel anything, this may not be the stretch for you. But I've got another one for you in part 2. So maybe give kneeling lunges a try. All right, let's switch to the other leg. We'll draw the left knee in towards the chest, switch our hands out so that our hands are clasped at the front of the left shin. Right leg goes long, and I'm finding that I've kind of moved up on my block, and so it feels like it's going to slip off. So feel free to readjust as needed. Clasping hands on top of my left shin, left knee drawn in towards my chest. Right leg is reaching long. I'm reaching through the heel, and I'm thinking about curling pubic bone north as I do so. As I continue to reach through the right heel and curl pubic bone north, I feel a stretch through the front of the right hip. Hopefully you do too. We'll hold here for a couple more breaths. Breathing into the stretch. One more time. And then bend your right foot so that the sole of the foot's on the floor. Draw your left foot towards the floor. We'll go into a little neutral bridge to come off of the block. So press into the soles of the feet, lift the pelvis, remove the block, and then sit back down like you're sitting into a chair, just like with neutral bridges. Figure 4 stretch, those of you who have worked with me know I really prefer this up against the wall, but for the sake of timing today, we'll cross left ankle over the top of the right thigh. And this is a perfectly valid place to stay. For many people, they're really tight in the hips, and so being in this position is plenty of a stretch for your hip rotators, specifically piriformis. Your left foot must stay flexed to keep the knee in line with the second toe, therefore protecting the knee joint. I could go into detail about that, but I'll spare you. Long through the side body, pelvis, spine, and neutral. If you want to add on, you're going to draw your right thigh towards your chest, clasping hands behind the back of the thigh. Lower leg rests here. You'll notice as I did that, I imprinted my lumbar spine into the mat, and there are lots of ways our body compensates for tightness in the hip joint in this particular stretch, which is why I prefer to do it up against the wall. So what I'm doing is thinking about creating a slight southern tilt to go back into a neutral pelvis position, and I'm able, at least on this side, to have my arms or my hands clasped behind my right thigh and keep my head on the mat, my neck and shoulders relaxed. Now, if you can't do that, I wouldn't pull my leg in. If you're up here holding on for dear life, you're probably straining your neck more than you want to just to stretch your hip rotators. So if you have a wall available, you can go up against the wall and place this foot that's in the air, just place it against the wall at roughly a 90-degree angle, and then really focus on the alignment of the pelvis, thinking about your headlights shining up towards the sky, keeping your pelvis from rotating from one side to the other, not hiking from one side to the other. There are a lot of alignment adjustments here. I also have a video on my website, www.mindfulmovementcenter.net, that specifically shows figure 4 stretch against the wall. So if you want a visual with my cueing along with it, check that out. It's under the resources tab or page. All right, let's switch to the other side. So right foot goes down towards the mat, opposite foot sits one distance apart, and switch to the other side. Right ankle is over the top of the left thigh, externally rotating from the hip. So a lot of people will kind of use the back of their hand or top of their hand to press into the thigh here to open up through the hip more. I'm fine with that as long as it doesn't throw your pelvis out of alignment. So right now I'm in neutral. If I do this, I've just hiked up the left side of my pelvis. So stay long through the side body. Right foot is flexed, protecting the right knee. This is, for me, because I have issues on my right hip, we'll just leave it at that. This is plenty of a stretch. So I usually hang out here when I'm doing my own practice. If I come up, I'm feeling a lot of stretch right here, and I need to actually lift to get to the back of my thigh here. And as I come back down, now I can relax. So I'm okay here, but I'm also finding that I'm curling my pelvis north, and I'm having a little trouble going back into neutral pelvis. So for today, and it might be different this afternoon, it might be different tomorrow, I think I'm better off staying here on this side. Our hips tend to be very different between one side and the other. You might experience that in your own body. So just listen to what's working for you, and remember, you're doing this to help promote healthy hips. So sometimes we just want it to look a certain way. Focus on feeling the alignment and remembering the intention of each exercise. My intention is to get my hip rotators stretched without straining any other part of my body, including my neck, which is important. All right, let's come out of the figure 4 and we'll go into lying twist. So some people like this one better. For me, I like doing both of them because they stretch different parts of my hips. So for lying twist, you're going to take your pelvis 2 inches to the left of midline. You're going to cross your left leg over the top of the right. Both knees are going to draw down to the right side of your body. Arms, for me, I like having in cactus arms or goalpost arms because I feel like I can be more open through the front of the chest. And both shoulders need to stay rooted to the ground as you twist. You might choose to keep your gaze straight above you, or take your gaze to the left so that you're looking away from the direction that your knees are going. And this is a nice one to hang out in for a few breaths. I think of this similarly to wringing out a towel. So when I wring out a towel, I'll twist and pull. So we're kind of doing the same thing with the spine. We're in rotation. We have our pelvis, lower spine rotated to the right. Upper spine is either neutral or rotated slightly to the left if you're looking the opposite way. And as you twist, think about with each inhale lengthening through the spine and the side body. We'll stay here for one more breath and then use the exhale to co-contract, engage the abs to draw the knees back up to center, uncross the legs, draw your pelvis back to in line, and then 2 inches to the right of midline, right leg crosses over the top of the left, both knees draw down towards the left side of your body, arms are back in that cactus position or whatever is most comfortable for you, shoulders are wide across the back of the rib cage, drawn down, lengthening through the spine as you continue to breathe. And it's really common in this position to start to arch the spine, particularly the lower spine, a little more than is healthy for the lower back. So see if you can use your abs to create more length, particularly through the lumbar spine. You might find this also creates a little bit more of a twist or a little bit more of a stretch across the upper part of the hips. One more breath here, and then use your exhale to engage your lower abs, drawing your knees back to center, uncrossing the knees, and then taking the pelvis right back to midline. And we'll go on to our very last part, which is lying diamond. So for this one, you're taking your inner borders of your feet, drawing them together, and allowing both knees to open up to the sides. Stay long through the spine, particularly lumbar spine, so kind of walking my shoulders up my mat to create that length. And then I'm really comfortable just like this. However, a lot of people find value and more comfort in putting bolsters, pillows, blankets underneath their knees on both sides so that their knees are more supported. I like having this opening, this external rotation. Sometimes when I do Shavasana at the end of a yoga class, I'll choose this position to finish up. So I encourage you for our last little moment here to draw your gaze inward, closing your eyes. Allow your shoulders to draw down the back of your rib cage. Allow palms to face up towards the sky, ready to receive. And just draw your attention back to your breath. Inhaling expansion into the body. And on the exhale, releasing anything that is no longer serving you. Take one more breath like this. Inhaling, relaxation. Exhaling, letting go. And then gently bring one leg back to neutral position, knee facing the ceiling. Opposite leg comes back as well. Eyes open. And roll to one side to come up to a seated position off of your mat. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed Healthy Hips Part 1. And please let me know any feedback you have. I intend on making more videos, so your feedback's really important to me. Have a great day.